I first heard Personville called Poisonville by a red-haired mucker named Hickey Dewey in the big ship in Butte. He also called his shirt a shoit. I didn't think anything of what he'd done to the city's name. Later I heard men who could manage the R's give the same pronunciation. I still didn't see anything in it, but the meaningless sort of humor that used to make Richard Snarry the thieves' word for dictionary. A few years later, I went to Personville and learned better. This is the opening paragraph from Dashiell Hammett's novel, Red Harvest. It sets the tone of the following story, in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way, a humorous anecdote followed by a dark premonition of what's to come. And that's the tone of the novel, slightly comical characters finding ways to kill each other and come out on top, in a city so corrupt it makes modern-day Chicago look like modern-day Copenhagen. And this was the tone that the Coen brothers sought for Miller's Crossing, their ode to Dashiell Hammett, and a first in a trilogy of odes to hard-boiled fiction. The book Red Harvest isn't the entire inspiration either, as The Glass Key, another book by Hammett, is more similar to Miller's character-wise. The Glass Key is about an advisor, or consigliere, Ned Beaumont, to Paul Madvig, the political boss of the town, who essentially runs it. He controls the mayor, the DA, etc. Of course they have to win elections no matter how fraudulent they may be, but despite the corruption things run rather smoothly. That is until a murder happens, that of a son to an important political ally to Madvig, who was also secretly seeing his daughter against his approval. This is right before the election, and chaos reigns, as Madvig is a prime suspect. And his rival, an Irishman named Shadow Rory, is jumping at the opportunity to take over the town himself, and will use any deception possible to ruin Madvig's reputation. It's up to Ned Beaumont to keep Madvig's head above water and clear his name. In Red Harvest, the main character, the Continental Op, a nameless private detective, enters a town as described above as poisoned. It has a long history of a man who was a mogul that ran that town, Elihu Wilson. Then there was a master strike, and he had to hire some gangsters to sort it out. But once they came in, they never quite left, and he had to learn to play ball with them or lose control of the town. This man's son is suddenly murdered. Right before, he sent a telegram sending for the Continental Op, and the Op is hired by the father in a panic to fix the city. And he does so by playing them all against each other, including the police and crooks, and violence ensues. The Glass Key and Red Harvest were written during the time of Prohibition and political machines, so corruption and organized crime was rampant. This was the era of bootleggers like Al Capone and Charles King Solomon, who could easily buy off police and politicians, even the mayor. There's also massive labor conflicts, like in Blair Mountain, and the Anaconda Road Massacre. It was a wild and morally gray era, as alcohol was deemed illegal, but no one really wanted to enforce it or stop drinking, so everyone decided to break the law, and a new moralism was invented. A moralism around the law. So in books like The Glass Key, a character like Ned Beaumont, who is part of this crime and corruption, can be seen through a more sympathetic lens, as it was common practice during the time. Him advising a sketchy figure like Madvig is seen as loyal in a way, almost like a chivalric knight to his king. Ned's loyalty to Paul, to clear his name, is admirable, and that's what we see in the character of Tom Regan in Miller's, a desire and loyalty to his boss, Leo O'Bannon. It's also with this new moralism that this Continental Op sets about fixing Poisonville to rid the city of the corruption. He has to behave in deceptive ways. Miller's is an interesting point in the Coen brothers' career. It's their third feature, the first being Blood Simple, whose title actually comes from the Red Harvest quote, "This damned burg's getting me. If I don't get away soon, I'll be going blood simple like the natives." It's one of the best indie debuts of all time. And then Raising Arizona, a movie that's a live-action Looney Tunes. A lot of people enjoy. Personally, it's not my cup of tea, but it's not a bad movie and I see why people like it. And Miller's has that contrast, with some humorous elements while also being serious and dramatic. I would say at some points it hits the cartoonish elements a little too hard. It looks like they had a little bit of Raising Arizona still left in them, like with Casper's son.
Which hand is the penny in? Choose again.
And some scenes that don't hit right comically and feels more awkward and out of place, but that depends on your sense of humor. The movie starts with a meeting between Leo and Casper, his Italian gangster rival, similar to Shadow Rory from Glass, and has a temper like the mogul Elihu Wilson in Red Harvest. Casper wants to eliminate a bookie called Bernie Birnbaum, who ruined a fix he set up, but Leo won't give his permission, as he's in love with Bernie's sister Verna. What comes as a result is war, as Casper is a rising figure, and he's not going to let a little bookie punk him. It's a bad move on Leo's part, because of all the trouble that would be caused over one bookie, and Tom immediately lets him know that.
Bad play, Leo.
But what he doesn't tell Leo is that he himself is sleeping with Verna, that she is only being friendly to Leo to protect her brother. What ensues because of Leo protecting Bernie is a bombardment of violence, side-switching, and betrayal. Tom Regan is no stranger to the violence either, as he gets beat up a lot in this movie. More than Ned Beaumont does, and he gets beat up a lot in the book. Tom is a lousy gambler, owing thousands that Leo could take care of, but insists on paying it back himself. Tom's a gambler by heart, like Ned Beaumont, and every move he makes in the film is a gamble. Sometimes he's lucky, and sometimes really unlucky. One of the bad bets Tom makes is letting Bernie live after being ordered to take care of him. What happens instead is he grants him mercy and becomes beholden to Bernie, because if word spreads around that Bernie's alive, Tom won't be. Bernie is based off a character in The Glass Key called Bernie Despain, a bookie who was a similar level of intolerable, but wasn't as essential to that story. He's more of a side quest. A lot of the deaths could have been avoided if Leo let Casper have Bernie, and if Tom did the deed, but they didn't, and there was a lot of suffering as a result. It goes to show how much chaos being moral can cause in this time and this place. You may not like the death penalty for a bookie, screwing a boss out of money he would have earned rigging a bet, but if you don't let the boss have his way, chaos reigns. You may not like having to personally take care of that bookie, but if you don't, chaos reigns. The town is like a jungle, an asphalt jungle. It's a place where the strength and power is the only thing that matters. There is no rule of law, and the police are controlled by the strongest. Same with the mayor, district attorney, and all aspects of government. So there's no real law other than the rule of force. So those are the rules you have to live by. And so Leo, by sparing Bernie, sets Casper with no other choice but a showdown, because he can't back away and take that loss on the chin.
That's right, Leo. You're the big shot around here, and I'm just some schnook likes to get slapped around.
So he has to fight back or risk getting trampled on. When Tom spares Bernie, Bernie realizes how much power he has over Tom and knows he can utilize it, rather than run away to a new town and start over. Tom does ultimately win, as he's able to gamble on a winning streak and use people's paranoia against each other. He also learns the coldness it takes to win, and after it's all over, quits his relationship with Leo, and forms a new path of his own. The film was very hard for the Coens to write, taking them 9 months. Even got to the point where they had to write a different script, Barton Fink, as a palate cleanser. Check out my video on that. But what came from that was an engaging movie that captures the essence of Dashiell Hammett quite well. There are some criticisms I have, but most of them are just distaste for some of the cartoonish elements in the film. But there are other choices I wasn't a big fan of. Really, this specific scene of when Leo is raided and thwarts off his attackers. It's a scene that shows how tough a deadly Leo can be, but the aftermath of the scene seems to destroy his organization, as the government and everyone else veers towards Casper, which doesn't make sense to me, as Leo did not just survive the assassination attempt, but was able to kill all the attackers and even chased after them. This comes across as more of a show of force, showing how strong Leo is, and I don't think anyone would perceive it as being weak. Because during that conflict, Leo only lost 1 man, while Casper lost 4. So it even makes Casper look incompetent. So it's weird seeing the mayor and chief of police switch sides. The cast did their job, with Tom Regan being played by Gabriel Byrne, who maintains his natural Irish accent.
It's not Leo's death. I'll pay my own way.
As he and the Coen brothers realized that the dialogue flowed better through that accent. Albert Finney as Leo did a remarkable job, especially considering the fact that he had accepted the role 3 days before shooting, as the guy who the role was originally written for, Trey Wilson, unexpectedly passed away. So taking that into account, he did a remarkable job.
You're exactly as big as I let you be, and no bigger, and don't forget it ever.
He also dressed in drag in one scene. Marcia Gay Harden as a love interest. Verna portrays an interesting femme fatale type, because while she is causing a lot of chaos, her motives are understandable. She wants to protect her brother.
He's my brother, I don't want to see him get hurt.
So she's not really evil like a lot of the standard femme fatale types are. John Turturro is great as Bernie. You really hate him, and no one pathetically freaks out like Turturro.
Out here in the woods, like a dumb animal.
No wonder he was cast in Barton Fink.
I did. Hold on. Not do this. Hold on.
John Polito is always great in anything he plays. He's an excellent character actor, wherever he appears in, no matter how small. And his turn as Casper is filled with passion and humor.
It's getting so a businessman can't expect no return from a fixed fight.
But there's also a menacing side.
Always put one in the brain.
He played the opposite type in Barton Fink. Another significant character is Eddie Dane, played by J.E. Freeman, based on Pete the Finn, in Red Harvest. And Dane is an advisor to Casper who's very adept to the game, like Tom, except he doesn't take nearly as many beatings. And is a good, lean, mean foil to Tom.
You understand, if we don't find the stiff out here, we leave a fresh one.
The reason I decided to talk about Miller's Crossing is not because I particularly love the movie. I like it, and I say if I had to rank Coen Brothers films, I put it somewhere in the middle. But the Coens have a very impressive filmography, so that's not putting it down. The reason I wanted to talk about the movie was because of the author's voice they're trying to replicate, Dashiell Hammett, who really was the first notable hard-boiled writer of books such as The Maltese Falcon and Thin Man, both of which were very good adaptations into film. Hammett was the first writer to legitimize the hard-boiled style of fiction, which before was just sold in pulp magazines as cheap, sensationalist entertainment. He was able to draw from his experiences as a detective for the Pinkerton Agency. He put forth an interesting foray of morally ambiguous characters and fascinating mysteries, and wrote about 5 novels and numerous short stories. He, like many writers, suffered from alcoholism and didn't publish any more novels after 1934. He did some stuff afterwards. He joined the Communist Party in 1937, served at a base in the Aleutian Islands in World War II, and even went to prison during the Red Scare in the 50s for not naming names. He died in 1961 and left behind a powerful legacy that influences many creatives then and now, especially within the mystery and noir genre. Raymond Chandler was one of those people, writing, "He was spare, frugal, hard-boiled, but he did over and over again what only the best writers can ever do at all. He wrote scenes that seemed never to have been written before." And I'd say the quote is true. Opening up a Hammett novel, I never really know what I'm going to get into, so I recommend reading all the novels. They're only about 200 pages each and are gripping to read. Hammett is only one of the 3 great hard-boiled writers from that era. The other one, of course, being Chandler, who I already made a video about his influence on The Big Lebowski. The third you might already know, if you know hard-boiled fiction. And the Coens did make a 3rd movie on this hard-boiled writer whose stories are quite different. There's just no mystery to them, just crime. And I'll be happy to tell you about them in another video.